your demonstration.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. Just a minute, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, very, very good evening to all of you. So today here I am, I'm going to teach you all about the Premna Microphylla. But before I go on to the Premna Microphylla, firstly, I just want to give a brief introduction to you all about the variety Premna itself. So if you look in, if you look at Premna, there are almost about 40 varieties of Premna. Of the 40 varieties, a minimum of 40 varieties of Premna. Of the 40 varieties of Premna, 4 varieties are very, very popular in bonsai, as far as bonsai is concerned. The first one is the Premna Microphylla, that is the one which you're seeing over here, displayed over here. The second one is the Premna odorata. The third one is Premna ceratifolia, and the fourth one is Premna japonica. So these are 4 varieties that usually people use in bonsai because they respond to bonsai very, very nicely. Among all these, the Microphylla is the best, which responds very, very nicely to bonsai. So that's the reason. So if you look at the Microphylla, the ceratifolia and the odorata, these 3 are tropically suitable, whereas the japonica is more suitable for cold climates, for climates that like Japan and America, where it snows, such kind of climates, the japonica is very, very suitable. Now, how do you identify them is, for the Premna Microphylla, usually you have an oval shaped leaf, which is quite big. It's quite big, like if you look at it, bigger than this. When you put it in the ground, it's bigger than this. But then as it keeps going, as you keep making a bonsai, what happens is it becomes tiny, not almost invisible it becomes. So that's why it's nothing that you don't have to do any work on it, but what happens is magically, automatically, the leaf reduces as you keep pruning and as the tree's ramification keeps increasing. So this is what Microphylla is about. If you look at odorata is nothing but the leaf is more roundish. The leaf is more roundish, and the reason why they call it odorata is, for Premna Microphylla, when you crush the leaf and when you smell it, it stinks. It stinks like Cerisa foetida. Most of you would have smelled Cerisa. It stinks. In a similar manner, Premna Microphylla also stinks. But if you look at odorata, and when you squash the leaf like this way, and when you smell it, what happens is it gives a very beautiful fragrance. So that's the reason why they call this the Premna odorata. Next, you have the Premna ceratifolia. Ceratifolia, the word ceratifolia is nothing but the leaf is serrated. What do you mean by the leaf is serrated? Is serration is nothing but when your leaf has these kind of curves. These kind of curves are what you mean by serrated. So that is why it is called ceratifolia. Right now I don't have the variety, but I'm getting it. So maybe once I get it, I can post it and I can show it to all of you later on. So that's ceratifolia. And for the japonica, the leaf is more like a maple, The leaf is in this kind of a shape for the japonica. But the japonica likes cold climate more than tropical climate. Okay, so that is as much as the classification for the 4 very commonly used varieties for bonsai. Now, apart from that, I would like to teach you about the Microphylla. Today, I'm going to concentrate and I'm going to tell you all what I know and how I've made these bonsai. I'm going to tell you those whatever knowledge I've gathered while working on these trees, today I'm going to help all of you in explaining to you all about how exactly you go about in making wonderful bonsais out of Premna Microphylla. Now, the Premna Microphylla, the first thing is the growing techniques. The best way to grow your Premna Microphylla, the first thing is always grow it. If you want to increase the girth of your plant, girth means the thickness of the trunk. So if you want to increase the thickness of the trunk, the best method is the ground. Very, very vigorously, Premna grows. All you need to do is just wire the tree at the lower portion, of your tree. Now, for example, I have a plant like this way, which is a very, very basic plant, and I want to thicken this plant and make it into a material. So all you have to do is, first, you have to wire the lower portion of your tree, because the lower portion is what you're going to use for your bonsai in future. Okay, so what you have to do is wire the lower portion, that is never leave it without wiring, because if you leave it without wiring, what happens is Premna usually grows straight. And for bonsai, movement is always very, very important. Very, very important. So that is why always make sure that you wire the plant and then put it into the ground. At the moment the wire bites into the tree, remove the wire and just allow the tree to grow freely. And what happens is you end up getting a very, very beautiful material for your bonsai, for your bonsai in future. So that is why it's always good to first wire it. In fact, any plant, this is a very, very good idea for you to do. Now I wired this plant. Now what happens is, whatever. Now I just see it's a basic plant. A basic plant takes any style. You can do whatever style. So whatever style you have in your mind, you can bend it to that particular style initially, and you can just leave it. Don't touch the branches, nothing, only the trunk. And what you have to do is bend it. And remember Premna, always remember Premna, whenever you want to wire the Premna, you have to always use a gauge, one gauge thicker than the actual gauge if you want proper bends. If you want proper bends, one gauge thicker than the normal gauge that you have to use for that particular branch. For example, suppose there is a particular branch where I have to use this particular gauge. Now what happens is, for that particular branch, if I use the next gauge of this, the bending is much more easier rather than when you use the exact gauge suitable for that particular branch. That's what I have noticed. What happens is the branch doesn't snap easily because Premna is quite brittle. It's quite brittle. But if you don't want it to snap very easily, I wouldn't say it would never snap. The snapping is less compared to when you use the exact gauge for bending. So you have to use one gauge higher for making the bends. So I've used 2 wires over here to make those bends. Now what happens is, now you make your particular bends, okay? You make your particular bends, and then what you do is you put it into the ground. A better idea to put it into the ground, is use polythene bags. Now always remember, there's something known as slip potting. What slip potting means is, now for a plant which is so thin, this particular this particular container is suitable. But this particular plant, which is so thin and so small, what happens is, I'm not only talking about Premna, I'm talking about any plant. When you put it in a very bigger kind of a pot, it happens to suffocate and the growth doesn't go vigorous. This is something called as slip potting. What slip potting is, now as the tree grows, as the tree keeps growing, you gradually increase the size of your container. How you increase the size of your container? You just have to tear it open. Do not disturb the soil, but just put it in a little larger container proportionate to your tree. If you do this kind of a technique for any plant, not only Premna, but any plant, what happens is the growth of your plant is very, very vigorous compared to when you put a small plant in a very big container, it gets suffocated, and what happens is the vigor of growing it slows down drastically. So that's the reason why you always should do a kind of a slip potting. But when you're putting it into the ground, my serious advice would be, take a bigger cover, take a bigger container, okay, like about that height, okay. And what you can do is, this same plant which is so thin, you can just place it on top of that, fill it up with soil, fill up that big container with soil, and this one you can just double pot it and just leave it over there and allow it to grow. The vigor of growing will be the same as what it is when it is in a proportionate container. So this is how you bring in the vigor of your plant. Once your plant has grown quite thick, you can just remove this and you can place it directly into the bigger container. It goes off directly. The roots will already penetrate into that, and automatically that container will become its actual container. Okay. So for thickening Premna, you should always put it into the ground. If you do not have ground space, try to do double potting. What do you mean by double potting? Double potting is nothing but something like this way. A pot in a pot. You won't believe this particular Premna. I started it from a cutting. It was a thick cutting, but it didn't have a single branch. It just had one branch. It just had one tiny little branch. There are people who have witnessed seeing me do this. They have seen me do this. And this particular thing, this ramification that you can see is only 8 to 11 months old. 8 to 11 months old. And if you want, you can see the amount of ramification that is gathered. There was just one single tiny little shoot out, and I started from there, and that's where it began. So if you know the species, if you work more on the species, what happens is your hands, you can do magic with that particular species. So that's why it's always advisable, always good to catch people who are good at a particular species and try to learn from them more and more, so that we can gather information and we can master that particular species. If you go abroad and you see these nurseries usually, the bonsai nurseries, they usually limit themselves to just about 2 or 3 species, mainly because they know the species very well and they can do magic with that particular species. But we take in everything that comes in. We like to have everything that is available. So what happens is, we cannot dedicate ourselves to one particular species because we have lots of species in our collection. So we cannot dedicate ourselves to one particular species. So what happens is, the moment you catch a hold, in 8 months, if I can get such kind of a ramification, it is because I have caught hold of the kind of characteristics of Premna. So if I've got hold of the characteristics of Premna, I can make a very good bonsai out of them. So that's the reason why. So when you want to, if those of you who do not have soil, garden spaces or anything, go for double potting. Double potting will add vigor to the plant, because once the roots from here go down there, because see, it was earlier in this small container, but it was quite a thick plant, quite a thick cutting it was, and it had just one shoot. So I put it in a proportionate container, waited for that container to get root bound. Root bound means roots are coming out of that, till the roots are coming out of escape roots. Escape roots are nothing but from, the holes underneath. When the roots are escaping from there, they are called the escape root. So when those escape roots are visible, all I do is take another container, fill it up with bonsai soil, and just place this on top of that. And now this will get root bound, and this has already started getting root bound. Can you see those hair-like roots? Can you see over there? Yeah. So those hair-like roots will come, and then finally, when you get the mature roots, the plant is actually telling you that I don't have enough of space inside. Kindly, can you say change my soil? So indirectly, actually, plants talk to you. They talk to you. I mean, I may seem mad when I say such kind of thing, but actually they are communicating with you. So when your roots are coming out, when escape roots are coming out, that is when you have to go for another repotting. But for us, we think repotting means, okay, Feb ending has come, the growing season has come, we don't see the escape roots, we don't see anything, and we just blindly start changing all the bonsai, and we start repotting all the bonsai. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Always wait, see the escape roots, because the plant will communicate to you and tell you that I don't have enough of space inside the particular pot. So wait for the escape roots to come, and then you have to do the repotting. So now the growing techniques to increase the girth of your Premna. First one is putting it into the ground. The second one is doing a double potting. When you put it into the ground, Premna Microphylla is a variety where it doesn't require too much of water also. Even if you do not take care of that particular plant also, it will become very, very thick. Now, the way to make it grow thick is to allow it to grow wild. Do not prune it, do not cut it. Whatever wire you have done at the initial part of the thing, once it's biting into the trunk, you just remove that wire and just allow it to grow wild. If you allow it to grow wild, what will happen is, the plant will thicken much, much faster, because the logic behind that is nothing but the more the leaf, the faster the plant, the more vigor the plant has. So if you try to chop it in between or try to prune it, it means you are removing leaf. You are reducing the leaf. So when you're reducing the leaf, you are actually slowing down the process of it thickening. So what happens? Do not cut the plant, do not prune the branches, nothing till you're happy with the girth of the trunk. Clear, everybody? So this is the growing techniques. Do you have any doubts about the growing part? Do you want anything to be answered? Kiran ma'am?
Yes, there's a question.
Yeah.
The problem is when we grow in a bigger pot or ground, is that the nebari isn't good and we get a couple of bulbous root. Please let us
Yeah.
know how to manage that.
Yeah, so Premna is very, very easy. Very, very easy to create the nabari. It's very easy to create the nabari. Let me draw it and show to you a diagrammatic representation, so it will be much more easy for you to understand. Now, most of you must already have known about the ring method. The ring method is nothing but, now, suppose this is your Premna and this is your growth bag, as Kiran ma'am has said. Okay, this is your thing. Now what happens? Suppose the nabari isn't good. I mean, it's not attractive enough. All you have to do, Premna is so simple and so easy, just like a ficus, so simple. All you have to do is around the tree, just above where the surface roots are beginning. Surface roots, those of you who do not know, are the roots where they begin. See, These are the roots, right? Yeah. So this is where the surface roots are beginning. Okay. So all you have to do is just peel out the bark like as though you are air layering it. Like you are air layering it. Peel off the bark on all the sides. On all the sides. Apply some rooting hormone over here and just cover it up with extra soil. Cover it up with extra soil. What happens is you will get very beautiful roots. Multiple number of roots will come. Premna is so simple, so easy. You will get multiple number of roots over here. Multiple number of roots, and what happens is you end up getting a very, very beautiful nabari. Clear? Kiran ma'am? You're on mute, Kiran ma'am.
Yes, that
Yes, we've got that answer. So we, sir, even the video is ready. Whenever you want it to be on, we can play the video.
Oh, why don't we play it at the end of the whole session?
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
end of the whole session.
Yeah, that'll be nice. There's one more question. Should
Yes.
we prune it in winter or let it be like that and do the pruning and cutting in spring?
I'll be coming to that point. I have a point called dormancy, so I'll be coming to that point. I'll explain it over there, ma'am. Okay, so everybody clear about the ground growing techniques of bonsai?
Yes.
Now I want to tell you about the wiring, how you wire a Premna. Okay. Now, Premna, as most of you already know, the moment it thickens to a pencil thick, like how Renu ma'am had said at the beginning, before the class before the session could begin, she said that Premna usually snaps a lot. It snaps a lot. Now, the first tip I've already told you, you have to use a gauge, one gauge more than the actual gauge that is required for that particular plant. Secondly, if the plant has become stiff, pencil thick and it has become stiff, all you have to do is, I hope all of you remember in the Delhi convention, Juan, remember the Fukan tree? He did something like this way, and he loosened the veins of the tree. The similar technique, you can use it for your Premna. You have to loosen the veins like this way. Okay, you have to loosen the veins like this way and then wire it, and you can bend it to whatever shape you require. Clear about the wiring? And always remember, the moment the wires are biting in, or don't be in a hurry to remove them. Allow the wire to bite in. Kiran ma'am, there's some disturbance somewhere.
Please, members, mute yourself, everyone.
Yeah. So the moment the wire is biting in, usually people remove the wire. But for Premna, what happens is the moment allow the wire to bite in a little more. And what happens is, no matter what bend you made, the moment you remove the wire, it will remain in that exact position and it wouldn't fluctuate back. You understood? So always wait for that Premna always wait for the wire to bite in a little more, and only then remove the wire so that that fluctuation doesn't happen again. But the shape is retained. Clear, everybody? Any doubts about the wiring? And always remember, the soil should be very, very, very dry when you wire a Premna. Make sure you dry up the soil. Only then what happens is the body will be very flexible for the Premna. Okay?
Veer, there's a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we put the plant in the ground, how do we control the height of the tree?
Do not control the height of the tree. Now remember, do not control the height of the tree. Why do you need to control the height of the tree? Because you are only putting it into the ground to make it into a material. That is why, so you do not have to control the height of the tree. If you control the height of the tree, it means you are controlling the growth of the thickness. The higher the tree grows, the faster the thickness happens. And always remember in bonsai, no matter how high the tree grows, anyway, you are going to cut it back short to about 2 feet tall. And then you are going to allow it to grow, and then you're going to make a material out of it. For example, my mother plant that I have over here. Now this plant, when I had got it, the first plant when I had got it, I actually got it from Bangkok. It was a very, very small plant, very tiny plant like the one I had wired. It was like that way. I didn't even know about this variety, but the person over there was saying it's very, very good for bonsai. It's very, very good for bonsai. So I picked it up and I came. And the first thing I did was in my farm, that time I had all my trees in the ground because I was a self-taught artist. So what happened, whatever internet was saying, I used to listen to that and I used to do it. So all my trees, till whatever I made, I had put them in the ground in the farm over there. This was one of them. This was one of them. And this went to almost about like 6 feet tall. It went to about 6 feet tall. But then after that, I chopped it over here. I chopped it over here. Can you see the chop over there? Yeah, I chopped it over there. Once you chop it over there, what happens? A flush of new growth comes. This is how you do bonsai actually. A flush of new growth comes, and that's when you start designing which branch you want, which branch you don't want, and then you start designing your tree according to the style that you want. Clear? And the remaining portion, I have made another bonsai which is in the video. You will see it's in a cover still. It's in the cover still. But I'm just telling you now so that when the video plays, you'll be able to see it. So it's in a cover and it's a beautiful cascade, the remaining portion. The remaining portion of this trunk, I made it into a cascade. But it's still under development. So I left it in a cover. Okay, so clear? So that is why never ever control the growth of the tree when it is in the ground, because anyway you are going to chop it off to whatever height you want to make that particular bonsai. You understood? And until and unless you chop it off, only then you get a flush of branches. Because if you don't chop it down, what happens is you won't get this kind of a fill up. You won't get a fill up. You will always have so much of negative space in your bonsai. And what happens is when you have negative space in your bonsai, your tree wouldn't look as beautiful as it should look. So that is why this is how you do bonsai. You cut it off, wait for the new flush of growth, and then you start designing your tree. So the first 2-3 years, you have to be concentrating on thickening the tree, The more you thicken the tree, the much more beautiful it looks. If I say this tree is 6 years, nobody is going to believe me. Nobody is going to believe me. Because if you look at the trunk already looks like it's a 10-year or 15-year-old trunk, right? So it's in bonsai, it's very, very difficult to actually assess the age of a particular plant because the growing techniques of the plants are different. A person who puts it in the ground can achieve something thicker much faster than a person who's been growing it in a pot. So that is why never ever restrict the growth of a tree when it is in the ground, because if you restrict the growth, you are restricting the tree from thickening faster. Okay, so the logic in bonsai, the more the number of leaves that are there on that particular wild plant over there, the faster the thickening happens. Clear, everybody? Now, the next point is the styles. Now, what styles exactly can you make out of Premna? Now, Premna, I love to call Premna as the magical plant. The reason why I call it the magical plant is because you can do any sort of styles with Premna. If you look at this, it's a twin trunk here, there's another twin trunk over here, there's a root over rock over here, there's an informal upright over there, there's another informal upright over there, and there's another root over rock over here. This is a root over rock which I've not shown to, I mean, I don't know why I've never put it on Facebook or social media anytime, but here, this is another one. It's got a very beautiful rock over there, like that. Can you see?
Yes, yes.
And see the ramification underneath.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Now, if you just follow what I'm going to teach you today, and you will see a lot of change in your Premna trees as you are working on them in future. So Premna can be made in any style possible, any style, whether a cascade, you can make a cascade will be shown to you in the video. You can watch it over there. So these are some of the things, and it's a very, very, very good specimen for a root over rock. Now I'm going to show you a sample of why I have emphasized on saying very, very, very good, because Premna, what happens is when you put it on a rock, automatically it merges with the rock. Can you see here? There's no gap between the root. There's no gap between the root and the rock over here. So it clasps the rock very, very vigorously, and it looks very, very beautiful and very, very natural. See? So every birthday of mine, which is on the 5th of September, Teacher's Day, what I do is I usually put a particular specimen. I usually put it into a cover, to kind of do it. So this one I had put it in 2019. They were very young plants, and now they've caught on. And once the trunks have clasped, once the roots have clasped and the trunks have thickened, I've just chopped it down, waited for the new growths to come, and now I'm starting to do the branch placements. I've started to do the branch placement. So this tree is a lot more than this particular tree here. Here the branches need to develop a little more. So that is why I always say Premna is very, very good for a root over rock. Can you see how it is clasped?
Yes.
Much, much better than a ficus. Much, much better than a ficus. And the beauty about Premna Microphylla is the proportion of the leaf gives to your particular tree. That is the reason why I'm so crazy after this variety. It's not because it's easy to do it. The reason why I love Premna so much is because it gives me proportion. When you come to a certain stage in bonsai, what happens is you think a lot about proportion. You think about the leaf should also, be proportionate to the tree that you are making and stuff. Your thinking keeps going to finer details. So when you go to those finer details, what happens is you like smaller leaves for your trees, smaller fruits, smaller flowers, everything small, you like it because they add a lot of proportion to your tree. So this is how it clasps the rock. So that's why Premna, among all, of course, it's very good for all the styles, but among all the styles, I like it for the root over rock the best. Imagine one huge rock and you put about 8 or 9 Premnas over it, and over a period of time, all the roots clasp that particular rock, and you can imagine making 6 or 7 of those beautiful trees on one single rock. How amazing it will look. Because the leaf is tiny, the trees will look amazing. Okay? Clear, everybody? So that's about the styles. If you want to see, this is Premna variegated. The variegated Premna, and I'm doing a cascade a little slower than the normal one. Always remember, in bonsai, the variegated plants, because they have less chlorophyll, what happens is the growth patterns are a little slow than the greener plants. That's why sometimes, mostly in fact, what happens is a lot of people lose their variegated versions quite often. They lose their variegated species quite often compared to the green ones. So you need to be a little slow, which doesn't mean that it's not good for bonsai. It's actually very good for bonsai. You see how beautifully it's coming up, it's turning up. Okay, but what happens is you need to be a little slow. And always remember, in variegated versions, In variegated versions, sometimes you get the green leaf. You get the green leaf. When you get the green leaf, keep plucking it off. Do not allow it to grow. Do not allow it to grow. Keep it. So when you do not allow the green leaf to grow, the green ones to grow, what happens is the variegated is bigger. Is the vigor in the variegated part remains constant. You understood? But when the green comes, the green suckers come, what happens is the variegated ones take a backward kind of, what do you say? It goes backward, like, it slows down. The process of growing slows down. So that's why all you need to do is just keep pinching it off. And this variegated version is an amazing variety for bonsai. Amazingly nice. Right now it's in dormancy. That's why a lot of leaf has fallen off. All my Premna, I don't know why. I think because for the past 2 years, we've been having the virus and the pollution has reduced or something like that. All my trees, usually being on the coastal area, the dormancy doesn't come so quickly for me. It comes in January. It comes in January. But this time it came in November itself. The dormancy came in November itself for me. So that's why the plant is right now in dormancy. So that's the reason it doesn't look so healthy. But otherwise, when it is healthy, it looks amazing. It looks amazing, means amazing. But for Premna, in dormancy, there is a certain care that is required, which I will be explaining to you later in the class. So don't worry about it. Clear, everybody?
Yes. So there are some questions, Veer. Should I take
Yes,
them up?
ma'am. Yeah.
One is, can you please repeat when to wire before pencil thickness or early?
It's always better to do it earlier, ma'am. Before a pencil thickness, do it earlier, because the flexibility is more. The flexibility is more. In case it is pencil thick, then you have to do the twisting like this way so that the veins inside loosen up, and then you can wire it and you can bend it.
Okay, okay. Then there is one more that best season for propagating and repotting Premna.
Anytime during the growing season. In India, the growing season is from Feb ending till November. But stop in October, because mainly people like Delhi, it gets very cold and all that, and it goes off into dormancy. So if you want to root your cuttings, you want to do any repotting, anything, 1 month before your dormancy, stop. Don't do anything. Okay.
And there's one more question. We can see some shoots at the base of the pot. Are these the suckers or are they?
Yeah, the reason, see, most of you know in bonsai, you have something called as sacrifice branches. Those of you who follow me, I always keep telling you how to increase the taper of your tree. Most of you know what taper is, right? Taper is nothing but every tree in nature, the trunk of the tree is triangular in format. Triangular, which means at the apex it's thin, and as it goes down, it's broad. So there's somebody disturbing us, ma'am. So this triangular format is what you call taper. Okay. Now, when you get shoots over here, always retain them so that you can increase the broadness at the base, the taper, you can increase. So these are called sacrificial branches. They're called sacrificial branches. That means once the thickening is over, you are going to sacrifice them and not keep them. So you just have to wire them a little and just allow them to grow this side. If it's coming from this side, if it's coming from the front, allow it to grow front. If it's coming from the back, allow it to grow back. The reason why I tell you to wire them and put them in that angle is, if you don't wire them, what happens? They usually grow straight like this, and they will create a hindrance to this part of the tree. So what happens is, you just have to wire it and show it its direction. Once a wire gets tight, you remove that wire and just allow it to grow wild. The thicker it gets, the much faster the taper forms. Okay, ma'am? So sacrificial branches, that's why I keep them. When they are in a material stage. I keep them.
There's a question, Veer.
Yes, ma'am.
Shamaji wants to know, I lose my Premna when I remove from soil. Why?
I think, where's Shama? Can she come up on the screen and give me a small explanation? Shama Garu? No, I think she's on mute.
Shama ji, can you
unmute yourself? Shama, you
unmute?
can unmute yourself.
Yes. Shama Garu, unmute yourself.
Yeah, now it's come. So when I put it in the ground and I allow it to thicken and it becomes very nice, lush, everything. Then when I try to remove it from the soil, it lasts with me for about say 15 to 1 month, and then suddenly it starts dying out.
So do you train it in the ground itself?
No, nothing. I
So-
allow it to grow wild.
Okay, so listen, whenever you dig out a plant, see, always remember in bonsai, there is a logic behind digging plants. The first thing is when you dig out a plant, see, every tree in nature, there is a proportion between the roots and the leaves. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a proportion between the roots and the leaves. Now, when you are
Right.
doing when we are doing a repotting in bonsai, I'm talking about a normal repotting in bonsai. It's always advisable to reduce the number of leaves before you do a repot, because you are going to remove
True.
certain amount of roots. So that means you are actually
Right.
building up the ratio. You're building up the ratio.
Yeah.
So I think during when you are digging out a plant, because when we dig out a plant, what usually happens is a major number of roots
Okay.
are usually left back
Yeah.
in the ground. So I think you're disrupting the ratio too much. So if you defoliate the Premna, dig it out
Okay.
from the
Okay.
ground, put it into a container,
Okay.
cover it up with a polythene, water
Okay.
it and cover it up with a polythene. You will not find any loss at all.
Okay. Let me
Okay,
try
Sham?
that. Thank you.
Try that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, now the fifth point. I have 13 points to tell you all today, of which I've just come to the fifth point. Now the fifth point is Jin and Shari on Premna. Now, Premna takes a lot of Jin, a lot of Shari. It's a lot of hardwood. You can do amazing kind of Jin and Shari on Premna. In the video, you will be seeing one particular plant, which is again still in a theli. A theli means a packet. You will be seeing there will be a lot of Shari work. I have done a lot of Shari work on that. I still have to do the fine tuning for that. So Premna is always, but Premna, what you should know is it gives you a lot of natural Shari, Now, when I showed you that specimen over there, I cannot show it to you on the video, but actually that whole trunk is hollow inside. The whole trunk is hollow inside. It had come naturally. And I hadn't done anything. Now this particular plant, when you look at it from the front, there is nothing. But when you look at it from the back, you see again a natural Shari happened over there. Premna takes in a lot of natural Shari, and you get a lot of uros over there. Uros are nothing but holes like this, which show age. And look at this. This is a very beautiful uro over here, which has been naturally formed by itself. It came, and what happens is it adds a lot of character to your particular tree. Okay, and you can notice one of the sacrifice branches over here. I just ginned it purposely and I just left it like that way. One of the sacrifice branches that was there. So Premna is very, very good. The thicker the material, the more artistic you can be as far as Jin and Shari is concerned. I'm planning now, since I've settled down in the studio, I'm planning to do a kind of a show on Jin and Shari with power tools, how you use the power tools. most of the ladies, they think it's very difficult to hold a power tool, but actually it's so easy to do with a power tool. You know, so I want to inspire all of you all and just kind of teach all of you so that you can you know, start doing such kind of things, and it's so enjoyable and it's so very interesting. So I'll do a session later on about chin and shari so that you'll be able to understand about it. So Premna is one particular plant where you can do n number of shari and ginning on, and it responds very, very beautifully. But the thicker the trunk, the more artistic you can be. Because in the video that is going to come up, you will see one of them where I've just done 2 stages. I have to do the fine tuning. You'll be able to understand over there by looking at how exactly you can do the shari on Premna. Clear, everybody? Now, fusion. Now, most of us know that ficuses fuse together. Ficuses fuse together, right? I mean, when you take about 10 plants and put them together, they fuse. Similarly, Premna also fuses just like the ficus. Just like the ficus, Premna fuses, but it takes a little longer. It takes a little longer to fuse compared to the ficus. Now, just like the ficus, you do not have to remove the bark or anything like that way. All you have to do is just tie up all the Premna plants together and very, very tightly. You have to tie them up together, and over a period of time, automatically the fusion happens. The fusion happens. Here's one of the fusions that I had done, but then after that I neglected it. After that I neglected it and I didn't take care of it. So that's why. But a bit of it has fused. A bit of it. Can you see this portion here? It's fused.
Yes,
There.
yes, Veer.
Yeah. So this is how the fusion will happen. This is how the fusion will happen. So these were all not because I wanted to do something. It was just that I wanted to experiment with the species. So I was just doing all sorts of things and just trying to see how it would respond. Now, some of you already, do you know about the wedge cut? The wedge cut. When you have a thick particular branch, you make a wedge and you can bend a branch, right? You can bend. You don't know about that? I mean, maybe the name is Greek to y'all, but then definitely you'll know the technique. Now, suppose there's a very thick branch over here, and you want to lower this branch. Just a minute. There's a very thick branch, okay? Now, you want to lower this branch like this way. You want to lower it like this way, okay? So what happens in ficuses, right ears, podocarpus, these kind of varieties, what happens is you can do a wedge cut and you can bring it down. You can do a wedge cut and bring it down. Now, what exactly is a wedge cut? A wedge cut is nothing but you cut it like this, like a triangle.
Somebody said it's called a V cut also. It's called the V cut.
You cut it like a triangle, and what happens is you make the bend. When you make the bend, automatically these join together. They join together over here, and then you can put some sellotape on top and don't allow air or water to go inside. And over a period of time, the healing process happens, and what happens is the bend remains the way you want the bend to be. Clear? In Premna also this happens. In Premna also you can do the wedge cut when you have very, very thick branches. When you have very, very thick branches, the wedges heal up. The reason why they heal up is because Premna fuses. Any plant that fuses, the wedge cut can happen. The wedge cut will happen. Clear? Clear, everybody? So So Premna fuses. I don't know how many of you knew about it, but Premna fuses, and also Premna, you can use the wedge cut if you have very, very mature specimens. If you have, you can use them in developing your bonsai. Now, the reason why I always love to call Premna a magical plant, the reason why I always love to call Premna the magical plant is every part of the Premna, you can use it to make it into a bonsai. Just like a right ear, you can use the roots, you can use the branch, you can use the whole plant as such to make a beautiful bonsai. Now, how do you make it with the roots? I'm going to show you a few specimens where you can see such beautiful roots. Can you see these roots here? Just see how beautiful the movement of the roots are. I haven't wired the root and brought any movement. The root was exactly like that way. The root was exactly like that way. So this was, Renu ma'am, these are the roots I was talking to you about.
Yeah, they are so
Okay.
beautiful.
Yeah, so this is one. I can show you another one. Here's another one. See?
Yes.
These are all roots. Now the root, propagation of the root is very, very easy. Okay, look here, there's another one. Can you see?
Yeah.
Another one. So now propagation of these.
One question is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
like a trunk gets thick and then thinner from the top, but a root normally will not get that kind of a taper, isn't it?
Yeah. But what happens is, I'll explain to you, don't worry, because all these have got taper now. All these have got taper. Now, what happens is now, usually when you put a Premna root for, like, when you're doing your repotting, you'll be cutting off a lot of roots.
Yeah.
Don't throw away the roots. Instead, in those roots, select those which have that beautiful movement. Even when you put Premna in the ground and when you remove it, most of the roots remain in the ground. Dig out those roots because you will get very, very beautiful trunk lines you will get out of those roots.
But I guess you can
When
even
you-
wire the root, right?
Yes, you can, ma'am. If you have flexible roots, you can wire them if you want.
Yeah.
But the mature ones, they take very beautiful shape.
Right.
Very beautiful shape. The ones which I showed you, they were already shaped by
Okay.
nature.
Yeah.
They were already shaped. Now, when you want to propagate, when you put the root, it won't kind of shoot out immediately. It will take a little long. So don't think the particular root is dead or anything. Just wait for a little longer. It's not as quick as a cutting. You understood? It's not as quick as a cutting. So wait for a certain period of time, and automatically what happens? Shoots will come out. But you need to be a little patient. Any root that you have put for propagation will take a longer time than a cutting. Okay. So that's why Premna roots are very, very good to make mames and shohans. For mames and shitos. Very, very beautiful specimens for mames and shitos. I know most of you know what is a shito. A shito is nothing but a thumb size bonsai. A thumb. The height of the bonsai is your thumb size. That's called a shito. And it's spelled S-H-I-T-O. Shito. Clear? So that is why for a Premna, it's very, very suitable. The best way to propagate your Premnas, even during your dormancy, you can propagate your Premna. All you have to do is take your cuttings, put it into soil, and immediately put a poly bag on top. And what happens is humidity is created inside. Even during dormancy, what happens is it will definitely root. And Premna, you can root even such a thick cutting and a very thin cutting, a broomstick thick cutting also you can root. Even such thick cuttings, which are about 3-4 inches also, it's very, very easy to root them, provided you do the polythene method. Okay? The polythene method is very, very good. 99% success rate. if you use the polythene method for all the varieties, Clear, everybody?
Reed, there's a question.
Yes, ma'am.
While planting the roots, do you put
Yeah.
half in under the soil and half above the soil?
Yeah. See, what happens is when you actually remove the root. Now, suppose this is a particular root, okay? Which is like this shape, okay? And what happens is you will have secondary roots over somewhere over here, or your primary roots or something will be over there. So you have to put this portion in the soil. You have to put that portion in the soil. Only then what will happen is these particular secondary roots will multiply and make this into your new plant. Will make that into your new plant. So you have to, that particular root that you have selected, you have to see where there are secondary roots and put that particular portion in the soil. Okay?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Now, the next one is defoliation and ramification. How do you increase? This is the most interesting part in Premna Microphylla. The defoliation and the ramification. Now, if you want to defoliate it, see, Premna always loves defoliation. There are two ways of defoliating Premna. One is stripping, the other is pinching. Okay, these are the two ways through which Premna loves to be defoliated. It loves to be defoliated in these two ways. Now, what do I mean by stripping? What do I mean by stripping is, now, if you look at this particular branch, the leaves are here and the node is on the top. The node is on the top here, okay? So what happens is, when you want to strip it, you have to strip it against the nodes, like this, okay? The moment you do this kind of a strip, what happens is, every node gets activated. Because a vibration happens. Every node gets activated. So what happens? Most of the nodes will give you a shoot. Now, when most of the nodes give you a shoot, it means your ramification has increased. Clear? So what happens is, now, for a particular branch, now this particular branch, over here, if I just take a scissor, and if I just prune it over there, when I prune a branch over here, the vibration is only till here. So what happens? Only these nodes are activated. But when you strip a plant, when you strip the branch like this, all the nodes are activated. That is the secret behind increasing the ramification. Clear? So always when you want to multiply your ramification, do not prune your tree. Instead, strip your tree. The more you strip your tree, the more it ramifies. For those of you over here who do not know what exactly is ramification is nothing but the multiplication and increasing of branches. Let me show you a small diagrammatic representation of ramification. So ramification is nothing but you have your primary branch, then you have your secondary branches, okay? Then you have your tertiary branches, okay? And then you have your twigs. Like this. A collection of all this together is called ramification. A collection, a network. The network of branches is what you mean by ramification. So to ramify your tree, now see, ramification, most of us in India, we have trees that are 40 years old. We have trees that are 50 years old. We have things, but only the trunk shows. Only the trunk shows. But when you look at the ramification, the ramification doesn't match the trunk. The ramification doesn't match the trunk. Always your ramification should match the trunk, because the more your tree is ramified, the more the age that it will show. So if I pick up any particular plant over here, which are just 5 to 6 years maximum, and when I overturn them like that way, can you see the multiple number of branches over there? And they always say that the cost of the bonsai depends upon the ramification, the stage of ramification that particular bonsai is in. So if your bonsai is on the twig stage, it is very expensive. You understand? So usually the cost of the bonsai is based upon the ramification. So if you want to create such kind of ramification, always remember stripping the tree. Stripping the tree will increase the ramification tremendously. It will increase it tremendously.
Veer, I have one
Asking
question.
something. What about plucking?
Plucking, more than plucking. See, when you pluck the tree, when you pluck the leaf like this way, there are chances where you can hurt the node.
The node.
You can hurt the node. But when you strip it like this way, what happens is it's very uniform. It's very uniform. One tip I would love to tell all of you, though it is not related to today's topic, any compound leaf variety plant which is suitable for bonsai, for example, tamarind, such kind of compound leaves,
Yeah.
always, if you want to ramify them, always strip them. Stripping is the best for compound leaves.
So Veer, I have
Compared
one
to-
question. I have one
Yes,
question,
Renu,
Veer.
yes, Renu ma'am. Yeah.
Does this hold good even for ficuses like Ficus microcarpa and
Yeah.
some other
I
species?
do it for quite a lot of trees, ma'am. Quite a lot of trees, I do the stripping technique.
Okay, so
Because that is how I ramify them, ma'am. That's how I increase my ramification.
but even the larger leaves variety?
The larger leaf also, yeah, you can. Banyan is good, you can do it.
Stripping.
Yeah, you can strip it, ma'am. You can strip it.
Okay.
But always strip it in the growing season only, yeah.
Okay.
Grow in the growing season only. And now always you have to remember, when do you do the next stripping? You understood? Now you
Yeah.
stripped it now, the new shoots have come. Now wait for those leaves to mature, wait for those leaves to mature, and then go for the next strip.
Right.
Then go for the next strip. And also you have to remember, we do mad pruning actually. All of us, we do mad blind pruning we do. We don't think and prune. So to increase the ramification of your Premna through the pruning technique, now suppose this is your primary branch. Let me take the blue marker so it will be more visible to you all. Now see, this is your primary branch. What happens now? When this is your primary branch, okay? And then this is your secondary branches. Now, you want to increase the ramification from here. From this stage is when you start concentrating on increasing the ramification, right? So now what happens? What we do, we just cut, and we just kind of put it off on the shelf and we go away. That's not the way we're supposed to do it. That's not the way we're supposed to do it. Now, this is the first generation. I'm talking about the secondary branches, okay? This is the first generation. Now, the moment you prune this, 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 or the moment you strip that, the moment you strip this, the moment you strip that, the moment you strip this, it gives out branches. Right? It gives out branches like this way. Right? Now what happens? Again, blindly, we just cut it like this, cut it like this, cut it like this, cut it like this. So that means you are actually removing your ramification, but not preserving your ramification, which is very, very wrong. which is very, very wrong. Instead, what you have to do, now you shouldn't touch the second generation. Now, this, as I told you, this was the first generation, right? Your secondary branch was your first generation. Now your second generation is your secondary branches, So now this time you have to only strip these. When you strip these or when you defoliate these, what happens? These give you the third generation. So automatically now you see how the ramification increases. So this is how you have to think and do it. But as you keep doing it, the first few times you have to think and do it. But then once you do it and once you get used to it, what happens is automatically you do it yourself. You don't have to think about it, but you automatically do it. So this is how the ramification will build up. So always preserve your ramification rather than remove your ramification. Because the more the ramification, the more beautiful the tree will look. The more beautiful the tree will look, and it will look like a tree exactly in nature. So any doubts about ramification and pruning and defoliation? And remember, it goes into dormancy. When it goes into dormancy also, you can defoliate it because in dormancy, automatically it sheds its leaves. So you are only helping it in shedding its leaves. So there's nothing wrong even in the dormancy if you strip the plant or defoliate the tree. Any doubts, Renu ma'am, Kiran ma'am?
Beautifully, Lataji has said you've explained it very beautifully. And
Thank you,
somebody
ma'am.
is asking, is stripping done from the tip of the branch to base or otherwise?
Yeah, from the tip to the base. Go against the node. So that means, see, this is the tip. This is the tip over here. Can you all see? This is the tip over there. So you have to go like this. For thorny plants, Pithecillobium, Feronia lucida, these kind of plants, actually you can use your hands. Rather than and be scared of you don't have to be scared of the thorns. For such kind of plants, go with the thorns. Like this way. For thorny plants, you strip like this way. Non-thorny plants, you go like this way. You remember was Budi sir doing that Pithecillobium in one of your demonstrations, one of your sessions? You remember how the Bombay session, you remember how he was defoliating the tree with the thorns? They were just doing it along with the thorns. So it doesn't poke your hands. Clear?
Right.
Any other doubts, ma'am?
Yeah, what about mame plants? It's too small to hold the branches. So how do we strip
So
that?
usually actually for tiny varieties like this way, for those of you who are very, very lazy, I'll put up a link about there's something called as a blow dyer. It's called a blow dyer. The moment you have to put some water inside, and you have to on it. The only problem with that blow dyer is they use it in these textile factories. It's a very small instrument. They use it in these textile thing for the dyeing, processes of the textile. What you can do is, if you on it, it is an electric one. You have to just on it and you have to focus it on the plant. And what happens with the force of water that goes over there, it strips all the leaves. But the only problem is it makes a lot of noise. So you need to have kind of some headphones or something on your ears and you can do it. Or if you want to irritate your neighbor, go ahead, with that, that kind of a thing you can do with that. So there is that particular thing. And abroad, they have these huge specimens, right? So they use a power hose. To defoliate their trees. But when you're using the power hose, you should make sure that you're not hitting the roots Don't hit the roots, but you can do it on the branches. You can do it on the branches. So
Yeah,
that is
but
another
that you
easy
cannot
technique.
use. You cannot use that on your mames or your
Mames.
shonis.
So for the mames, the one I'm talking about, that small dyer, that's a very good one for that. It's a
Okay.
very good one. Because one of my American friends showed me that. Because they do it in their nursery over there. And when I checked on Amazon, it was available on Amazon. But then I have the patience, so I thought my hands are better, so I'm doing it with my hands. So
But
clear,
tell me,
everybody?
yes,
Very
ma'am.
well explained. Everybody's saying very well explained.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. So the next one is fertilizing. That is the most important thing again on Premna. Now always remember, in general, bonsai in general, if you look at it in general, flowering plants or fruiting plants always like a high phosphorus and a high potash fertilizer. Whereas a non-flowering plant like ficuses, Premna though is a flowering plant, the flower isn't so attractive. And apart from that, the flower only comes when the tendril, when that particular branch grows very lengthy, only then the flower comes. So, but you cannot see it in a compact tree, you cannot see the thing. So most of the time, usually the flower is cut off. Okay, so what happens is non-flowering plants always like a high nitrogen fertilizer, Okay, and Premna is one particular plant which really loves a high nitrogen fertilizer compared to a high phosphorus or a high potash fertilizer. It immediately the vigor of growth in that particular in Premna is so vigorous when that particular when you feed it with a high nitrogen fertilizer. That doesn't mean that your phosphorus and your potash has to be zero. It shouldn't be zero, but your nitrogen level should be a little high. You can get Osmocote or Basacote. You can get your baskets, put them inside, and you can put it in your tree. And apart from that, also I use urea to grow my field material, So they grow very vigorously, very vigorously. I put a pencil thick plant in the ground. Within a year and a half, I get about this thick Premna I get. Because I give it nitrogen, only nitrogen, that is only urea. I don't even use Basacote or Osmocote. When that particular plant is not in a pot, I don't use. I use Osmocote and Basacote only when the particular plant goes into a bonsai pot. But all my materials, I use raw, like NPK, or I'll use urea, or I'll use potash. You understand? That kind of a combination I'll go for. But when it is in the ground, I give my Premnas a lot of nitrogen once in 10 days or once in 15 days. Usually for materials, I give it once in 10 days. For materials. Whereas for a finished bonsai, for Premna, I usually give it once in 15 days, but I give NPK. I don't give urea to them at all. For a finished bonsai, any finished bonsai, not only Premna, but any finished bonsai, always give it a low nitrogen fertilizer. Never give it a high nitrogen fertilizer. Clear, everybody, about the fertilizing part?
Yes,
And now and now the last part of our discussion is the care during dormancy, which is also very important. Remember, Premna, there is a lot of dieback. You would have heard about it. There is a lot of dieback, especially the Premna Microphylla. There is a lot of dieback. And I have been wondering why there is a lot of dieback in Premna. But fortunately, the virus came and I was at home and I was doing the watering and I was looking after the plants. And frankly speaking, last year and this year, I was not able, my dieback was almost about like 40% of dieback I used to get during the winter time. I used to get about 40% of dieback on my Premnas. But last year and this year, I had only about 5% of dieback. The reason how I found out was it was over too much of watering, too much of watering. That means a regular watering. So during dormancy, reduce the water to half for your Premna. Suppose during the growing period, you are pouring 1 mug of water for that particular plant. During the dormancy period, pour only half a mug of water for that plant. And what happens? The more the water you pour for the plant, the more for your Premna, the more the dieback happens during dormancy. Usually, dieback happens only in dormancy for Premna. So people in Delhi, it gets very, very cold. So you need to be very, very careful when you are watering your Premnas. Reduce the watering for your Premna. I always remember in winter, the best method, follow this method and see how it works out. The best method is one particular day in a week, I give it a watering holiday. I don't water the plants. One particular day in a week. I don't water the plants, I starve them. In winter only. And I think for people like you in Delhi, you can have 2 watering holidays because it's actually very, very cold over there and the soil never dries up very, very quickly. So I think in a week you can give 2 watering days, but start with 1 watering day and just see the difference and let me know, because when I had explained this in my classes, some of them had tried it out and they had seen a lot of difference in their plants and a lot of dieback had reduced over there. I remember doing a class on dieback and Nupur ma'am, you were there for the dieback class, you remember? It was a very interesting class. In that class, I had told you all about the water holiday.
Yeah.
So give it a water holiday once a week. Once a week, give a water holiday and just see how it works out. And I'm sure your plants will work out much better and you will see a lot of drastic fall in your dieback. So that's as much as I have. But in case, because usually I never prepare for these, but I just keep the subheading so that I remember that I need to talk all about this. But in case I haven't spoken anything that you all really wanted to know, kindly please ask me, because I'm here to share everything. Whatever I know, I'm ready to share. So in case I have missed out anything, kindly please just ask me and I'll help you out.
There's a question about the soil composition.
Yeah,
And
the soil composition for Premna loves more of granular ingredients in its soil. The most I can tell you is use your regular soil and add a lot of brick pieces, tiny brick pieces the size of a groundnut. If you put it into your soil, if you put 40% of brick pieces in your 100% of soil, that is 60% soil and 40% of brick pieces, you will get amazing results. The more the granular ingredients in your soil, the very good rooting the Premna has.
and does it require full sun?
Yes, full sun, ma'am, full sun. The more the sunlight, the more vigor the plant has.
Okay. There's a question, would 19-19-19 qualify as high nitrogen fertilizer?
No, it's an equal fertilizer. It's an equal fertilizer which you can use for your materials if you don't find a high nitrogen. So what I exactly do, let me explain to you that part. How exactly I do it is, see, very rarely in the market you get like a high nitrogen and a lower of phosphorus and a lower of potash. But very easily you get a high phosphorus and a high potash fertilizer, you easily get it. You get a high potash NPK easily rather than a high nitrogen NPK. You understood? A water soluble one. So what I do is, now suppose I take a 1 liter of water, I add half a teaspoon of NPK, which is 19-19-19 or 20-20-20 or whatever it is, equal composition. I put in 1 teaspoon or half a teaspoon of water of this in that, and I mix it up. And now to increase the nitrogen level, what I do is I add 1 spoon of urea into it, and I mix it up and I give it to the materials. So what happens? Automatically the nitrogen level in that particular solution has increased. So I do it like that way.
What would you do with a 19-19-19 or 15-15-15 solution? Would you just increase it? No.
That's what I'm saying, ma'am. If I got a 19-19-19 or a 20-20-20, I would take a liter of water, put half a teaspoon of this 19-19-19 over there, mix it up, and I would take 1 teaspoon of urea, which is urea is only nitrogen. So I will take 1 teaspoon of urea, mix it into that 1 liter, mix it up and give it to the plant. So
Oh,
what
1
happens?
teaspoon.
Yeah, so what happens? That 1 liter of water now, the nitrogen level is higher than the phosphorus and the potash.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I
Isn't 1 teaspoon of urea too much for 1 liter of water?
do not-
Half a teaspoon.
do not give, see, always see nitrogen. Urea is actually a very, very dicey fertilizer. It's a very, very dicey fertilizer. So what you have to do is never ever touch urea when it is peak summer in your area. Never ever, never touch, never give your materials urea, because what happens? It burns. It burns and automatically kills your plant. Urea, when you give urea to a plant, the logic behind is when you give urea to a plant, a lot of heat is generated. A lot of heat is generated. So my personal recommendation is when you want to give urea to your plant, always give it in the evening so that that heat cools down overnight.
Also on a wet plant is much better, isn't it?
Always. Any fertilizer, you should always give it on a wet plant. You should give it on a wet soil. So what I do, I first water all my plants, all the excess water drains out, and then again I start feeding all my plants. And I usually always feed my plants in the evenings, because whenever you fertilize your plant, heat is generated. When heat is generated, it cools down during the night because the nights are cold. So it cools down and by morning the plant is fresh. So do not be blind when you're giving nitrogen. Always you need to be very, very careful when you're giving nitrogen. When the plant is in the ground, using 1 teaspoon Shamagaru, using 1 teaspoon is not an issue at all. When the plant is in the ground.
Yeah.
So Veer, would cow dung manure be a good fertilizer for it? And you
Yes,
know, we do make a liquid fertilizer with the cow dung, which I believe would give the nitrogen.
But always, frankly speaking, more organic chemical is more stronger. I mean, Renu ma'am, you're such a wonderful artist, and I'm sure you know about that. You see better results with chemicals than organic, right?
Yes, of course. Though we try to use more organic, but you're
I
right.
know that's there.
No, we are very wary of using chemicals in Delhi. We are very.
Yeah. But now people are going into that organic way of doing bonsai and stuff like that. I don't say it's wrong. I don't say it's wrong, except the process is a little slow.
So I guess using a high nitrogen or the urea in winters for Delhi would be good because it would generate heat.
See, in your winter now, ma'am, no matter how much of fertilizer you put for the plant, your plant is not going to
dormancy.
It's not going to. It's total dormancy. Yours is total dormancy. It goes into.
Does it help?
It's dormancy.
But a few masters told me that even in dormancy, always feed your plants. The reason why they tell me, but they told me like in dormancy, when you feed your plant every 15 days, in your regular growing period, when you're feeding your plants every 10 days or 15 days, in your dormancy, instead of feeding it so regularly, at least feed it once a month, they say.
Once a month. Yeah.
The reason, there's a logic behind. So I asked them, what is the logic behind? Because I always try to listen to the logic behind, because when you learn the logic, it sticks in your mind properly. Now see, it's a dormancy. Your plant has gone to sleep. Okay, it's not growing, nothing. It's just stagnant. It's, it's hibernating. So what happens is now, this is your particular plant, okay? And now you are putting your fertilizer during the dormancy period. What happens is the fertilizer which you're putting in, your plant is not sleeping 100%. 5% of your plant is actually awake. It is actually awake. So what happens? That is to keep the plant alive. To keep the plant alive. That 5% is there. So what happens every time you put in that food over there, it takes in the food and it stores it over there.
Yeah.
It stores it over there. Now what happens? For us, after dormancy, spring comes, right?
Yeah.
For us, spring comes. Now, what happens? This storage of nutrition, what happens in spring when the shoots come out, since it has that excess amount of nutrition stored over there, the vigor of shoots on your particular plant will be very vigorous. So that's why they say during dormancy also feed it, but don't feed it as regularly as you're feeding it during your growing period.
Yeah.
So this is the logic over there. So when the plant wakes up in spring, automatically the vigor is there and it gives that healthy kind of shoot. So actually it plays a lot of role in increasing the ramification of your tree.
So should the high nitrogen continue in spring?
For your materials only, ma'am. For your materials only. Don't use it for your finished bonsai. Never use a high nitrogen fertilizer for your finished bonsai.
Yeah, we normally don't use urea
because see, it's just like we human beings. When we come to the age of 40, we start thinking about, I need to be careful of my diet. I need to be careful of this. I need to be careful of that. So, you know, a bonsai also, when it is getting ready, and when it is finally ready, it has to go on to a balanced diet. It has to go on to a balanced diet to remain healthy. So if you give one particular, now if you give a high nitrogen, what happens? The leaves start becoming bigger.
Bigger, yeah.
The leaves start bigger. So what happens? That's why you need to start controlling, but at the same time, you shouldn't starve the plant, the bonsai. You shouldn't starve. So you have to give it a balanced diet. So that's why low nitrogen, higher phosphorus, higher potash will keep it very, very healthy.
Right.
Veer, can you talk about a fungicide?
A fungicide, I use a I use a chemical, ma'am. I use chloropyrifos. I use that. And for the past 13 years of my bonsai journey, I've been using that only. So there's no such thing as immunity or anything to the plant. And 95% of your pests are eradicated with that one
Aren't you
medicine.
watching Veer?
Yes. So 95% of your pests are gone. I mean, and I do it on a precautionary basis. I don't wait for the disease to come and do it. I do it on a precautionary basis. So once in 15 days, a spray happens. Once in 15, irrespective whether there is a disease or not, the spray happens. So God's grace, till today, I've never had any disease on my tree. They've always been healthy.
Okay, thank you. Veer, somebody wants to know the spelling.
Chloropyrifos, yes, it's just put in the chat over there. That's the spelling, ma'am.
Thank you.
And you have something called as chloropyrifos 20 EC and 50 EC. That is the strength. For us, 20 EC is more than enough. 50 EC is only for commercial people. Do not buy it. Buy 20 EC, that's more than enough. Even see, I live in a place where there are 500 nurseries over here. All the nurseries use this medicine only. They don't use any other thing. And always do not use too many different types of chemicals on your plants. Just use one particular one and just continue like that way. The more you keep stressing your plants with different types, some people use Roger, some people use this, that. They about 3-4 plants. They see a mildew, they say, no, this Roger doesn't work, so I have to spray something else. No, don't ever do that. Just buy a chloropyrifos and just go ahead. You won't get anything at all.
So what is the proportion? What is the proportion?
Yeah, 1 liter of water, you just have to use 3 ml.
Okay, 1 liter, 3 ml. Okay.
Yes.
So is Premna prone to anything else besides fungus?
Only fungus I've seen, ma'am. And fungus also happens only when it is raining.
Yeah, too
only
wet.
When it is raining. Yeah, when it is too wet and too damp, that's when the fungus comes. Otherwise, there's nothing else that I can find. And dieback, of course. But the moment the dieback used to happen, because the regular watering I used to do even during the dormancy. That's where the mistake happened.
Yes.
But
Yes, yes.
the moment I have reduced during dormancy period, the moment I reduced the watering to 50% for Premna, what happened is the dieback has reduced drastically.
Okay.
We in Delhi, we have extreme, day temperature to night temperature. That's when fungus also attacks. When we have it. So we have that issue also. As soon as the winter is coming, so the day is very high and the nights are cool. That also encourages fungus.
So do you all brush it off, ma'am?
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of brushing of it off, but you have to use a fungicide also at that time.
Okay.
So like you said, we use a preventive throughout.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So then you don't have such a lot of problems.
But then for me, frankly speaking, for me this time, if you look at it, I started having rains from May.
Yeah.
And still it's raining. Still it's raining for us.
Yes.
So this time, I mean, I never get fungus on my plants. I don't know why, and neither do I use a fungicide. Maybe the chloropyrifos is helping me.
That is what is. Yeah.
I think the chloropyrifos is helping me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think that one medicine is more than enough. But try it out. See, there's no harm. Just try it out for a month and see if there's any change. And if that is fine, just go for one particular medicine throughout, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
yes, ma'am.
yeah, you are a storehouse of knowledge. What to say? It has been an excellent session, and I think we should show the video now. All your hard work that you got into it.
Sure, ma'am.
So, yeah, Kiran.
Someone, before we do that, someone raised their hand, Mr. Piyush.
Okay.
Just find out he's got some.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You have some doubt? Yes, tell me.
Sir, how are you?
Fine, sir. How are you?
Sir, thank you. Excellent sessions and excellent, really excellent.
Thank you so much.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have a small query, sir. Yeah, as you told that in soil we have to mix two things: 40% brick and 60% soil.
For Premna, I'm talking about Premna.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Premna only, sir.
Yeah.
So what about the manure and other things?
60% you mix your manure and all that. So see, from places to places, actually the soil varies. The composition varies. You cannot copy what I'm using over here. You cannot copy it over there because your climate is entirely different from my climate. So what happens is,
you have been there.
So where do you stay?
It's Indore.
Indore. So Indore actually is also quite a hot climate.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a hot climate.
Yeah.
So from your the regular mixture that you are using, see if it is drying up too quickly or remaining wet for too long. You need to see that, you need to vary it accordingly. And to that particular mixture, you add 40% of your brick pieces. And what happens is that you give it to your Premna and you'll see tremendous growth, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Yeah, welcome, sir. Bharati ma'am. Unmute yourself, Bharati ma'am. Unmute. Okay, no. Okay, fine. Somebody else. Shubda Oak. Shubda.
Please ask the question. Please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, Shubda Oak, you raised your hand.
When Piyush can ask the question.
Piyush has finished. Ashwini Datta. Ashwini sir, your doubt?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Veer, thank you so much for this beautiful session. It added to a lot of knowledge. My question is, I tried to fuse Premna.
Yeah.
4 of them together, but even after 2 years, they did not fuse. I don't know what went wrong.
Did you bind them very tightly, sir? And you shouldn't allow air to go inside there.
it was tied up very tightly, and when I opened it, there were dig marks of that tying material.
I don't know. Or do one thing,
still
sir.
I did-
This time, just strip it a little from at the places where it has to join. Remove the bark on this side and put it together, sir. And try like that way. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Veer, I think I'm on. I can talk to you now.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Shubha Oak from Indore.
Yes, ma'am.
You have given so much wonderful information about Premna. I mean, I too am totally crazy about this plant. But
Yes.
I need you to tell me this. Can you help me for the name of this person from Indore? Because I'm at Indore too, and maybe I
Yeah.
could just get in touch with him.
Oh, you
And-
want this? You mean to say you want Premna plants?
No. I want to get in touch with this person from Indore who was talking to you. Plus, I
Oh,
want
Mr.
mail and
Mr. Piyush.
Mr. Piyush. Okay, but I
Yeah.
don't have anything. So if you can help
Even
me.
I also don't have his number, ma'am.
Agarwal ma'am. can help.
No, do you want some bonsai people or something over there in Indore or something to help you out or something like that way?
Yeah, actually, I'm totally isolated and I need to get in touch with people doing bonsai. I know
There is a bonsai club in Indore, ma'am. There's a lady called Neelam Tapadia. She's the president of the Indo Bonsai Study Group.
Yeah.
You can contact her. She's such a helpful lady. She must be here somewhere over here.
How do I get in touch with her? I don't have a phone number.
Are you there on my Facebook, ma'am?
No, I'm not. In fact, I don't use Facebook. So if you have your WhatsApp number, I won't trouble you much for serious queries. If you can share your WhatsApp.
I'll definitely give it to you, ma'am. I'll definitely give it to you after the thing. But how do I give it to you?
If you can you give me your Gmail? I'll send you my contacts on Gmail.
Yeah. It's Veeru Chaudhary, ma'am. VEERUCHOUDARY@gmail.com.
EARY.
DARY. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. VEERUCHOUDARY@gmail.com.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you so much. And thanks for a wonderful session.
Thanks, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am. Yes.
Veer can,
Somebody? Maura?
yeah,
Maura, ma'am?
Ashwini Datta. Yes.
Ashwini, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, let Maura finish because you have been given a chance.
No, my question was my answer was incomplete.
Yeah,
That's why-
tell me, sir. I told you strip the
Yeah,
bark
that's
on
okay.
this side.
I understood
Yeah.
that. My question is, how long would it take normally to fuse?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question, sir, because care and climate changes from place to place and person to person, sir.
I'm
So
in
it
Delhi.
depends upon that. It depends. Even the care also is
Okay.
required.
So maybe 1 to 2 years should be good enough.
Frankly speaking, for me, like in 8 months it fused, sir.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
so
for
much.
me in 8 months it fused, but then after that I neglected it, so again it split.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Veer.
Welcome, sir. Maura Fernandez, Goa. Tell me, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
I would like to know how to reduce leaf size.
Premna Microphylla, automatically it reduces. You don't have to reduce. The more you keep pruning it, the smaller the leaf becomes.
Yeah.
You
For Premna.
it's a magical plant. You don't have to do anything.
For
It will do
banyan.
it for you.
For
For
banyan.
banyan, it's defoliation, 3 times defoliation in the growing period, ma'am.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you, sir.
in the growing, any plant, if you want to reduce the leaf size, see, it doesn't mean that only defoliation will reduce the leaf. There are so many other factors. Those of you who have joined DBS, the Digital Bonsai School, I did the defoliation subject over there, and I told you all so many tips over there. There are so many things side by side which needs to go along with the defoliation for the leaf to remain the size it has to remain. I mean the small size.
So Veer, can we
Okay,
start
Bharati
the video
ma'am.
now? Okay.
Bharati ma'am, just unmute yourself. Okay, fine. Let's play the video, ma'am, then. Let's play the video.
Yeah, please, Kiran.
Yeah.
Ravi, please start the video. Yeah.
Give me a full screen. This one.
Veer, I think there's a problem in the video format. It's not coming.
It's yeah, but it's coming nicely. Let me. Shall I try it out once again?
Let's try it once again, Veer, from your
Yeah,
side.
we'll see if it works. Otherwise, I'll upload it onto YouTube and
Yeah.
let everybody see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a minute. Now I need to share. Can everybody stop? Whoever is sharing, I hope they've stopped.
So for the audio part, there is an option as share audio in the advanced settings.
Let's see, sir, now. Now is the audio coming?
No.
Is the audio coming?
No, Veer, sir. It's not coming.
No.
No.
It may be because you are using the Bluetooth.
I'll remove the Bluetooth. Wait. Now, is it audible?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Veer. Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot, Veer, for yeah. Yeah, now can you hear me? Can you hear me, Veer?
Veer,
Just
can
a
you
minute.
hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Veer. I have one sentence for you. Your Bonsaipedia is heaven on earth. So we all are looking forward to our visit to your beautiful, so beautiful studio. All your hard work that has gone in has paid off. Thank you, Veer. And thank you so much for such a wonderful session. Over to Kiran. Kiran.
Veer, on behalf of Indian Bonsai Association, I would sincerely like to thank you for this very educative, inspiring and enthralling session. You have explained everything in so much detail. As Nupur said, you're a storehouse of knowledge, and it was a wonderful learning experience for all of us. Your amazingly designed bonsai studio reflects your dedication, your hard work, and your aesthetic sense. I would like to thank all the participants for joining in today and for your appreciative comments. Take good care of yourselves, stay safe, stay healthy. Until next time, bye bye. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you, Veer. Lovely
Thank you, ma'am.
session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Lovely,
Bye,
lovely.
ma'am. Bye.
Bye.
Lot of good
Bye.
comments you've got. You've got lots of appreciative comments over here.
Thank you, ma'am.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Bye,
Bye.
ma'am.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can close the meeting, Kiran.
Yeah.